Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Young. I'm just going to walk you through the CBRE's latest ESG report. I'll talk a bit, there'll be an introduction. I'll talk a bit about CBRE and then I'll get into just the ESG reporting, particularly with you're doing with commercial, residential, industrial managers in terms of what they are with the facilities. This is my bio. I'm a CPA, CGA, so I started in accounting finance in the 90s, and I did a lot of work as a financial analyst up to an accountant role. I then moved into IT to drive data and AI deployments, which I've done 300 over the past 8 years across geography and industry. So I'm all about the data, and ESG is just another part of that mandate to pull that data together because you're looking at environment and social governance data, and it's all structured, and you got to map it through in terms of a blueprint. So I've done blueprint works before, and I've done mapping of solutions. So part of my goal with these presentations is to kind of guide you through it. Who is CBRE? If you look at this as a high level, there are basically an occupier and investor in real estate. So they manage property, just like Cadillac Fairview does, Jones Lang and LaSalle. And then they work accordingly with the vendors, right? On shared services, energy management, water management, recycling programs, all part of the overall facility management. So, because they have their targets from scope one and scope two, that's with the energy company, and then of course the supply chain when they're ordering stuff in, they're trying to manage that. So they're fairly large, and that means they probably, in this general, probably have a fairly sizable ESG department that's driving all these processes down as part of achieving their metrics. This gives you a good example of where they're at in the stock market. As you can see, they're trading about $117.50, and you can see kind of the trend up in there. The stock market's seen up and down swings for the last little bit, but this at least gives you some insight. Here's our latest quarterly report. I just download it because I like to kind of talk to see where they're at quarter over quarter. Because there's been some challenges. Like if you look at the S&P 500, 3 of the 5 companies reporting on that have not hit their sales targets. So there's been concerns about sales and expenses due to high inflation and consumer demand. So this one focuses a lot on the emissions here, and they're talking about scope 2 emissions, which is getting it from the energy companies, the utilities, and they're talking about their scope 1, and you're seeing sizable decreases in their overall emissions, like 24% from their baseline in 2019. That's basically, if you use 5 years roughly, that's almost 5% a year that they're decreasing cumulative over that period of time. That's a sizable reduction. Now the key is moving it down to net zero by 2030. What other things will they have to do? And that's going to get into the intensity of the energy, the water management, the overall what they need to do with the facilities and work with their scope 3 suppliers. This gives you a little bit more of a nutshell and a clip, a view into where they're at in some key metrics, emissions. You're looking at their DEI culture. You're looking at their sustainability side around how they're ranked by Barron's. So that's a good one. You get some of these rankings from Barron's because it's a credible organization, and it gives you a little bit more of the insight in terms of their sustainability practices. This kind of gives you a really good chart here. So they've kind of measured it in what they have in control, what they have limited control, and what they have some struggles with. The key is where they have limited control items like cybersecurity and some of the employee hiring practices, how they move them into the middle one and then put more control over that. And that's really going to come continually defining their policies around environment and social governance. As you can see here, they've significantly dropped their water year over year, and water is a significant area of facility management up there with energy and waste that you're trying to get to net zero, and that's why you're seeing organizations go to PDF file. They're trying to reduce their paper. They're looking at recycling programs and all that. And water is a big issue of how do you meter the water, how do you bring in other changes to the water systems, because some of the older buildings have some struggles with doing that. It's the same with the energy management. A lot of them are changing with the light bulbs, but there's also challenges around what else can you do as part of the windows and absorbing the heat, right? So there's a big plan going into that. This gives you again an extension of the energy management area because they're trying to move away from natural gas. But the problem is in some countries, like in Canada is a good example, 82% of the power in Canada comes from clean sources. But that's really relevant to these guys, depending on where their property is located. Some provinces are different. So, like in Ontario's case, it generates a lot of it from nuclear power. So, understanding where you can work with the vendors to manage your emissions is critical. Now, the next few slides, I'm just going to talk at a high level view. I'll skip to the end of these because they really relate all together. So the reason I put those slides in is whenever you're doing these ESG reporting cycles, it's all about the data. Now, you need to map that data to the metric, and then you need to be able to consistently report that metric. Now, most cases now with ESG reporting, it's on an annual basis. But I have seen more discussions happening of pushing these ESG metrics down to the operational level and also the management reporting cycle as part of the monthly reporting. Because the more senior management pushes these objectives down and the more these objectives are able to be measured on a consistent basis, the better you can drive the better outcomes. The other thing too is with the ISO standards and auditing standards, you want to have a blueprint to kind of map all this out to keep it clean. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna want to have your facilities eventually certified where they are in terms of the emissions, in terms of your targets. Here's some additional information about me. Um, you can see here that I've done a significant amount of work around the ESG reporting cycle. I also do metric reporting. Like I said, I'm pretty much a thought leader in multiple areas, from ESG down to data and AI to the close consolidation reporting cycle. I work with macro micro indicators. I have a significant experience working with the sales cycle. So anything I can assist your organization with the adoption of ESG, or how you can move your data together, how you can better pivot on stuff, you can reach out to me at any time. Thank you.